explain it to me.
So
Again, distracted by 7.
I know.
we're going to start Ecclesiastes, which is not a book that many of you read. Though it's interesting. It's different than Job. In fact, the first verse gives us the title of the book, The Words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Okay. First of all, what's Kohelet? Typically translated preacher. Net does teacher. Let's talk about that for just a second. The Septuagint, and that is supposed to be Greek, is the preacher. And the Vulgate does. Do you guys know what the Vulgate is? The Vulgate is the translation into standard Latin. So did you guys just go up there and not eat?
No, we ate a lot.
She's skinny and you're skinny.
This didn't just happen this week.
No. This is a
Interesting.
month.
Okay, fine. The Vulgate is the translation into Latin done by Jerome in the 300s, standard Latin translation of the Catholic Church. The Septuagint, the Roman numeral 70, which is what that is. Do you remember your Roman numerals? 50, 10, and 10. Okay. Because tradition says 70 rabbis translated the Bible, Old Testament, into Greek individually. And all 70 translations agreed word for word. And so they knew they had a divine revelation. Anyway, that's the tradition. It was done probably in Alexandria, Egypt, at the behest of the the famous library in Alexandria, at the behest of the emperor via the librarian. And the Septuagint is standard to this day in some denominations. So it's an important translation. Both of these translate this preacher. It's actually somebody that convokes an assembly. So an assembler, whatever that means. And not preacher in the sense that we mean it, like Daniel's a preacher. Okay, somebody convenes the assembly. So whoever this guy is, why? And then, if I'm yelling because I can't hear, forgive me. Son of David. We hear son of David, what do we hear? Who?
Solomon.
Solomon. And tradition says Solomon, but it's pointedly not Solomon. I mean, it's son of David, which technically could be any of the descendants. Remember, all the kings of Judah were descendants of David. And you go, huh? But whoever he was king in Jerusalem. This is the claim. Now, this is the title, but it's also the beginning of the book. It's setting the stage of the book. So, without castigating Solomon, without putting him down, they want you to think Solomon. And so this is the words of Solomon, son of David, king in Jerusalem. And what is Solomon famous for? Exactly. So we're going, huh? So we're going to get we're going to get a wisdom book, if you will. I talk about Solomon. Now, here's the title. This is an outline of the book of Ecclesiastes, which is very hard. The structure is just not evident. This is my structure. It doesn't mean much, but you can see, looking at the top, everything's vapor, nothing new under the sun. No, remember, it's seeking wisdom, seeking material success, so forth. Futility of work, futility of greed. Cynicism leads to the middle road, which we'll see when we get to it. Obey the king, work justice, take life as it's come. Very Zen moment here. Folly undermines wisdom, seek wisdom. And then the whole point of the book is the gotcha. That's my rendering of the last 5 verses, which tells what the book's all about. So this is one that's going to build. And in like Job, my eyes have seen you, but now my ears have heard you, but now my eyes see you. There's going to be a gotcha moment at the end, but we'll see. So let us begin, if you don't mind. I already read verse 1. I don't know, Julie, I feel like it should be you. Let me turn this up, I would say. Is that big enough? I can't hear you, Julie. What'd she say?
Yes.
Thank you, Renee.
Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity.
All right, it's one word. There it is. Vanity of vanities. Everything's vanity. Vanity, the word is actually the word vapor, like comes out of a humidifier, just a mist, which means it's not substantial, it's not permanent. That's the idea. So, in fact, I render it vapor. I don't translate it emptiness, which is what vanity is. So, futile. I just carry the metaphor, vapor. So say vapors. Vapor of vapors, says the preacher. Vapor of vapors. Everything's vapor. Okay, I don't know about you, but that's a real cheery start. And why would Solomon be saying that? Or the son of David?
Well, I mean, Solomon was given all the wisdom of the world, basically, so.
Your lips are moving?
Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to talk loud? I can do that. I mean, Solomon was given all the wisdom in the world, so I mean, at a certain point, that would mean that he would become pretty bored, I would think, too.
That's an interesting idea. He's just bored. At the very least, he has an idea of everything. But remember, they were hinting at Solomon without saying Solomon. It would have been easy enough to say Solomon. The book, by the way, was not written by Solomon. It's way late. It's later than Job. Probably there are no Greek borrowings, so probably somewhere during the Persian period. That's when this thing was written. Which is, remember, that's an exciting time in the world. Confucius is around, Greek philosophy is taking off. So people are thinking, and we're seeing this. All right, verse 3.
What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever.
So what do you see here?
That all the work that you do during your lifetime in the whole big picture of the existence of Earth is meaningless.
It's the old man on his bed. Well, I wish I'd worked one more double shift. Nah. Yeah. And tradition comes, generation goes. But the ultimate, what we do as humans doesn't seem to make any difference. That's an interesting perspective. I don't know about you, but I'm getting more cheery as we go on. Verse 5.
And hastens to the place where it rises. Wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, around and around is the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. The place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, and man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun.
There you go. Yeah. It's a giant meh, to use today's language. Meh. Nothing new under the sun. Now, if putting that in the mouth of Solomon is interesting. You know, it's about wisest man ever lived. Nothing new.
So I have a student, because in my class, I have them. One of the big topics that we have to talk about in environmental science is climate change, global warming. And I don't list my opinion. I make them do the research and I make them come up with their own opinion about, is this a real thing or is it not a real thing? And they have to, part of their paper is that they have to find a biblical reference for this. And I had a student who used these exact verses right here in their paper this past school year and said, you know, we have gone through many ice ages over the history of the world. And they said, what has been is what will be. So we have had global warming off and on throughout the entire history of the earth. And so that was their argument for this is nothing new. There is nothing new under the sun. And so that's cool. I had never heard that. I saw the little blip and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I had never read the whole thing in the context of all of it. But I thought that's kind of neat that they pulled that out.
Good for him or her.
It was a him.
You act surprised.
I missed it because I can't hear.
All the members of Kansas were hymns. Yep.
Are you going to break out and carry on my wayward son? Are you going to break out and carry on my wayward son?
It's playing in my head as we're reading it.
It's been playing for the last 5 minutes. I was gonna start singing it, but spiritual.
Julie?
Is it 10 or 11? 10. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after.
So this is the ultimate in futility. What we do doesn't make any difference. And it doesn't matter anyway, because nobody's going to remember it. Joy of joys.
And yet this man, whomever it was, did have what he wrote remembered.
There's a bit of irony in that. All right, Jeff.
I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity.
Vapor.
Vapor. Kind of a flashback to Al Pacino. Sorry.
Don't forget, I didn't hear that.
But I'm having a flashback to Al Pacino talking about vanity. Anyway, I'll go on. And is striving after wind.
Striving after wind. How do you catch wind? Guess what? You don't.
Sales.
He's not wrong.
You asked.
Talking to a Navy man, let's see what happens.
What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge.
Pause. Does that sound like something Solomon would say? Because the only one over him in Jerusalem was David. David created Jerusalem. This sounds like it could be a later king. It's back to my point. This is a literary position. He's wanting you to think Solomon without limiting it to Solomon. Does that make sense? Was that the speakers? Oh. 17.
I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is but a striving after wit.
I want to know wisdom and madness and folly. Nothing. I find that odd.
Maybe you just wanted the full human experience.
Right. All right, 18, Jeff.
For in such wisdom,
Much wisdom.
for in much wisdom is much vexation. And he who also increases knowledge increases sorrow.
I'm sorry, what?
He who increases knowledge increases sorrow.
Okay, is that what you said?
I put also in there.
Okay. Huh. Things that make you go, huh,
So what king would you think it would be?
it's not, it's a literary figure.
You just think it's a literary figure, even though he described himself as the son of David?
Yeah, the king here is Kohelet, whoever he is. Why is he Kohelet? And it's, you'll see when we get to the end. But it could be any king. But I mean, he's clearly pointing at Solomon, but he's not limiting it to Solomon. And we'll see where it goes. Renee, did I just yell that?
Yes, you did. I'm gonna speak up though, because, oh,
I can make it bigger.
Said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity.
Vapor.
Sorry, vapor.
All right, so look, he said, yeah, I tried wisdom. Let's go out to pleasure. 1,000 wives. Rich, biggest the kingdom was ever going to be. Huh. Verse 2.
So, sorry. When he says, I will test you with pleasure, what is he testing? He's testing the meaning of life, I guess,
He's testing himself.
testing himself.
I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life.
Do you hear? Yeah, I only got a few years. You know, huh. Okay, verse 4.
Made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which I had water, from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. Oh dear. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man.
Okay. So I went out to pleasure whole hog and I got it. Okay. Conclusion.
So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil,
And this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vapor and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun.
And the result of that. I mean, I have to go to the restroom. I'll be right back. Okay, so give me a second. But I have a story I want to tell here. It happened, I think, late.
Better, yeah, I can stand up. No, that's
You
good.
can,
I can on one leg and hop around.
yay. Better than zero legs. How's your pain level?
Do what now?
How's your pain level?
I'm just on Tylenol now. I'm not on the Oxy except for I take it at night when I go to bed just because I cannot stand sleeping on my back and it makes me sleep. My biggest issue now is we haven't even dealt with this whole situation, so I don't know what's happening here, but it's pretty sore.
Oh. Well, how did this all occur? I haven't heard the story.
I was on the Segway.
Oh, yeah, well, I followed on the Segway before, I understand.
It was Segway and Garden of the Gods, a bad combination.
Oh. I don't see why they would even try that.
Right. Garden of Gods was, I just saw Garden of Gods is a cool thing to do in Colorado Springs, and Segway Tour, which I had done in Anchorage, which is very flat. Sounds like a good combination. And it was a great time until it all of a sudden wasn't, and then it all of a sudden was. But I go back to the doctor on July 11th and they're gonna re-x-ray everything, and if everything's started connecting back together, then I can start putting weight on this leg, which will make using a walker a little easier.
Right.
Because right now I've got bruises on this hand from supporting myself. I mentioned the shoulder to Ryan and she's like, Mom, let's get it to where you can walk first and then we can deal with the shoulder later. She's like, oh, these broken. She thinks it's all like movements and stuff, like she thinks I should do it really bad. But I can't, like, that's it, that's as high as it go. It feels like it's separated, like, yeah. Yeah, they can expert it.
Okay. So, you know where India Palace is?
Yeah.
That was an Italian restaurant back in the 80s. And I worked there. I waited tables. It was very expensive. So we catered to the upper echelons of Tulsa. We had a $25 peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the 80s. That tells you. And I waited on a couple who decided on getting a divorce while I was waiting on them, which was very interesting. And I only saw one happy couple there, and he always brought his wife in. Everybody else was miserable. I'd go out, there'd be Rolls Royce or Ferrari or whatever, but they were just, and I talked to the chef, Hari Barossa, if that name's means anything to you. He's been a famous chef in Tulsa for a while. I talked to him, I said, these people, whoever they are, they just decided to get a divorce while I was waiting on them. And his wife was a waitress there with me. And he was the chef. I don't remember her name. And I said, that's why Cheryl and I have no desire to be wealthy. Because he was a chef for a couple country clubs and everything else. I've never seen any of these people be happy. They get to the top, they look around, they go, really? This is it? And they're miserable. And that's what he just said. So I've seen this in the flesh. And they just go, yeah. Why did I work so hard for this? And that's what he's doing. Okay. Things that make you go, All right, Shauna, pick up in 12 for me.
So I turned to consider.
Is that too small?
Find me another one.
No. So I turn to consider, thank you. Consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, and there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also.
It's the old bad guy, good guy, we end up in the same place, is what you say. We all die. All right, go on.
Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this is also vapor. For the wise as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me. For all is vapor, and is a striving after wind.
We're gonna hear this phrase a lot, but now he's gonna hedge it a little bit. He's gonna say, yeah, we're in the same place, it's not much difference, but wisdom's better than folly, and just kind of leaves it at that.
Like, this guy's losing credibility with me by the second, because, I mean, yeah,
I didn't hear what she said.
Losing credibility.
with me by the second.
Oh,
Because here's the deal. Yes, the same things happen to wise people as happen to fools. You know, we all have relationship issues, or we all have health issues, or we all have whatever. But when you have wisdom, you are better equipped to handle those issues versus when you are foolish. And you get better outcomes by being wise than by being foolish.
as a rule,
Generally speaking, right? Not always.
what he's speaking to is the not as a rule. As a rule, get married, stay married, get a job, you'll be successful in life. But occasionally, some of those people get hit by a bus. Crap happens. That's essentially what he's arguing. There's no guarantees.
So is he just deciding himself that he's wise, or has that been verified by other people?
Yeah, he can write a book.
But he's not the one that wrote the book. He's not the one that wrote the book. It's someone else talking.
The author's using him as a foil.
I think he's looking for some evidence.
Kevin. 218.
I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool.
Amass all this wealth only to die, to leave it to my inheritor, who could be a bigger idiot than I am. Who knows?
Yet he will be the master of all for which I have toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vapor. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vapor and a great evil.
No, I don't like that. He wants to be able to take it with him. Oops. 22.
A man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun. For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This is also vapor.
This also is vapor. Vexation is frustration. Yeah. But this is what he concludes. Kenny?
There's nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment?
So notice this toss out to God. Yeah. For apart from God, who can eat or even have enjoyment? All right,
For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vapor and a striving after wind.
no, he sees God's doing it. He doesn't necessarily like it. Intriguing enough. All right, Josh,
For everything, there is a season.
famous. You recognize this?
Turn.
And who did that?
Birds,
Was it the one that's at the top?
It was the Yardbirds, was it, or was it the birds?
the birds.
Explain the birds.
And a time for every matter under heaven.
Are you gonna sing it for us?
Oh dear.
What?
A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep, a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance.
What I want you to hear here, this is very Zen. I don't know if you know anything about Zen Buddhism and stuff, but essentially the world has a rhythm. Don't buck it. Get in sync with it. Don't beat your head against the rock. Just get in sync with everything. That's what he's saying here. Okay.
A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silent, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace, a time for peace.
One of the most famous passages in scripture. All right. Cool. And then he just moved on. Okay. All right. Shauna,
What gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man.
so be nice. Do good and enjoy what little bit you get. That's what he's concluding. Okay. 14. John, can you read? Would you read, please?
I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it nor anything taken from it. God has done it so that people fear before him. That which is already has been, that which is to be already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away.
So again, we don't make a difference. That which is already has been, what it's to be already has been. It's just, yeah. It's very cheerful book. What is your name?
Heather.
Heather.
Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness, and in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every work. I said in my heart with regard to the children of man, that God is testing them, and that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast, for all is vanity.
Now remember, not all ancient Israel had a concept of life after death. Even at the time of Jesus, that wasn't true. So he apparently doesn't. Verse 20.
All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to the dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better than than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him?
All right. Anybody cheered up? Okay, Mr. Brown.
Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors, there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun.
Even better, the ones that haven't been born. Huh.
Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vapor and a striving after wind.
Oh. Okay.
The fool folds his hands and eats his own flesh.
I beg your pardon.
I don't know.
Is there a better interpretation of that?
It's literally what it says. So if they're going to translate it that way, it's because they don't know what he's saying. As neither do I.
Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind. Again, I saw a vapor under.
Wait, let's pass this off to your wife,
What?
You want me to read this?
please.
Again, I saw vapor under the sun. One.
Wait a minute. It's 10:15. We'll stop here. Can somebody mark 4:7 is where we are?
I know, right?
Shut it down.
Very impressive. Solid.